Hello, I am Angelyn Spignesi, Arden. Continuing here, the video I posted May 16, 2018, describing the context of my work, and where I read a lyrical analysis of the first part of the first chapter of Jane Eyre. I will be continuing that here, where I relate the John Reed possession to oral, anal, and genital gorgings and burstings. I'll begin reading now. What removes the young girl from her window seat is John Reed's call to possession, his house, his book, his servant. The unnatural desire, hers as that of the stepmother, erupts to world as his gorging need, attacking, possessing her. When our desire is to remain in the unconscious, quote, death-white realms, end quote, when our desire to live out of the underside has been too long unconscious, what arrives is the craving. Need and craving emerge as the enactment of unconscious, unnatural desire. Gateshead is where the first manifestation of unconscious realms is of impulse reaction. Blood text permeated and his flesh overwhelms us. It is his book. Cruel master of ice realm, he draws her out through the scarlet curtain, reminding her of the human scarlet side of the winter storm. There is no mother here, yet a mother who has turned, and that mother's son who interrupts within the mother's turn, bringing the child into the world with a smash, thud, blood trickling the pain of a severed head. When we cannot yet speak the text of the recess to which mother sends us, cannot delineate the hate, stealing, death-dealing aggressivity and vacancy of that place, we become it in reaction to her son, and her son's only language is curse from eruption at us. The ice bottom engenders its own inflamed devil, humanly manifested by John Reed, who screams, "You are dependent. You are not enough. You do not belong. You are a rat." When he comes, he beats in our heads all day. We hear his curse over and over, gradually bowing under in an inferiority. We turn on ourselves to a burst. We find it difficult or impossible to hold any ground when he arrives. On the borderline, we have not a demarcated room balancing on the window seat, and we totter when he hits. John Reed comes through a stepmother's recessed window seat, where we do not have a differentiated place, have lost all balance, no sense of what is ours, dependent. John Reed comes when we have lost all sense of what is our substance. Without any solidifying substance, the John Reed attacks are merely repetitious shatterings. Primarily the movement of rejection, we sink back into window seat recess, flesh on bone shrunk, only to be called out daily, mocked, struck. Only motion of rejection and scission of the unconscious itself manifested daily in a John Reed scene, without anything solidifying, until the head open cracks, and this day we strike back. When we never have replied to his abuse, the day we do it is in the same manner we have been accustomed to receiving him. We lunge consumptively, becoming of his substance. Perhaps we think that solidifying. The book hits, gash, and we lunge, a tremendous gorging we grasp, flailing we seize for a consumption back. John Reed's possession of our text of Arctic death images has become our possession by John Reed. We distend in appetite. Our habitual obedience to John Reed turns finally into lunge, and the appetite now is ours, addiction. We lunge back, and our head breaks open, repetition compulsion becoming addiction. What could be scarlet force generated within mother's unconscious desire to become delineated, now is addiction. Okay, now I separate into a lyrical reflection. Slave driver, Roman conqueror, he inflates our need we want. We have stepped out of some place, sitting frozen vastness in order to burst, sever. He fills to crack open. Filling, no hole, totter, swirl. What is this tunnel plunge to fill? In turn, she turns and our gorge expels. Incorporate for expulsion, we vomit him out, oral burst. For others, his inflation, that moment to absorb, for shattering recurrent release, anal burst. And those who yet the very act on his demand, only to be filled, have stepped off the window seat to fill the infinite space before it happily smacks. Let it crack, bleeding genital burst as he whispers all through this night of the many lovers. He is whispering of our dependency. For the slave driver, Roman conqueror, out of which on us her turn, expulsion within incorporation, bulimia. Okay, back to the lyrical analysis. We destroy ourselves on his command as we despise our need. It is his book. His assault is an embodiment of Arctic demons. His attack and possession of us through his possession of the text on them indicates his relation to the Arctic forces. As that attack carries us off the window seat of their realm. For they will possess us bodily, if not to be spoken through speaking with us. Our lack of differentiation from Mrs. Reed is the impossibility of speaking them, carrying out their texts, the text of the Arctic forces. As we cannot dialogue with Mrs. Reed, we cannot dialogue with the figures of the Iceland recess, only subjected as complacent object to their nature until he screams at us that torture, non-dialogically, which is possession. When John Reed calls, we begin emerging out of the recess more to breakfast room, and his mode is of literal seizure, scission, and compulsion. Broken boat, sinking wreck, broken cemetery wall, marine phantoms, fiend pinning thief's pack, gallows become his crack, seizure and our lunge back. His cruelty and mockery draw Iceland demon out of what was suspended, now embodied through our lunge, which within his possession. Tyrannizing as excessive, when John Reed calls, we become addicted to thrust back. This bondage has been invisible. No one has responded to its tyranny over us. The servants see the blows, yet do not speak, and Mrs. Reed does not notice, is completely blind to the extent of his perpetual violence and attack, which only emerges through her turned back unconsciousness. John Reed is part of Mrs. Reed's unconscious that attempts to sever the child out of itself by having her embodied the scission and mortification of its forces into what is breakfast room. A false sense of self-sufficiency subtends the John Reed bondage. We say no one will believe us, no one knows the window seat place. Inflated as he strikes, we say we will retaliate. His presence necessitates the isolation out of which we repetitiously attempt to burst through his presence. Jane is alone with him, and she cannot summon a human assistance. Part of the John Reed inflation and the general force of the ice realm demons is that we think ourselves powerful enough somewhere to go it alone with him. A grandiose part has taken over without containment, for we have yet no way to signify in mediated forms the possessing forces. Grandiose with no one with whom to bond, and we find ourselves in bondage to a cruel master of our worst appetite. The book is hurled, and when it hits, the child is possessed. She flails, servants say, picture of passion. John Reed is our passion in a possessed state. John Reed is our passion as we break the unconscious Arctic forces out of a scarlet curtain side, and we are possessed. He even possesses the book, and there is no articulation of where we have been, only bloody incorporation of those violent and marginal forces. This is to have no perspective outside his will. We obey habitually, lost to his sheer force. The book is coming toward her, hurled by its demon fiend of her secret citadel, now fully embodied in the room. Here, attack. She is hit, going under the bloody, sticky crimson stream of a neck as she lunges back. The tantrum attack. Sometimes, with the servants, we fail to see that she is hitting back. John Reed emerges as fully bodied from the death realms of non-objects, required by mother's blindness, requiring to manifest the fissure and death-dealing seizure within the unconscious of mother's breakfast room. And in his severance, splitting, scission, split head and scission, no longer of ghosts alone, he binds her to life. Life's blood. Focus on another while bleeding. His possession requires her arrival to some sticky crimson current, undercurrent of mother's desire, which crashes, explodes, cracks open. The annihilating force rises after being shunned on the margin, placed where no interior or exterior, neither subject nor object, threshold of unnatural force complacency, shadow of a rejecting mother, holding in isolation the inferior desire, breeding, greed. Undifferentiated, sitting in a window seat recess of demons, becoming our most primal hunger, exhibitionistically flaunted. For a one-sidedness is the, quote, evil, end quote, of John Reed. He comes where there are no other voices, no dialogue possible at all. Allowing the book to be possessed by John Reed is to forego language. The head cracked open cannot express design. Possession of the window seat retreat. Her passion, consumptive in its lunge, becomes the possession where she signifies only through thrashing, bodily seizures. Herself, now the outburst. This concludes Chapter 1.